Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Tuesday morning to you all. Almost forgot what day of the week it was. Hope you guys are doing well out there, feeling well, and having a fantastic start to your day and a great week out there so far. Here to talk about the weather specifically for today, and I appreciate you folks joining me this morning as we do so. Kind of the same setup, the same flow, literally as yesterday, as we're going to have a chance for strong to severe storms. We are going to have strong to severe storms across Texas today, and then we likely are going to have the same kind of deal in Florida. Different setup that's driving this, but we're going to have a lot of heavy rain, a lot of shower and storm activity for the state of Florida today, and even areas of maybe southern Alabama, southern Georgia, and we're already experiencing a lot of shower and storm activity in those regions right now. And we'll talk about how it's going to be quite hazy across the northern part of the country, the northern lower 48, if you will, the Great Lakes region, the kind of the Midwest, and certainly the northern plains, if you will, are going to be affected by a lot of hazy, smoky conditions from these wildfires, I believe, in western Canada. So we'll talk about that too. And then we'll give you an update on what's going on potentially with the tropics as we get a little bit closer to the end of the week into the weekend, as one model is going all in with something, not all in as like a catastrophic hurricane, but certainly some development, and then the other models are saying, not so much. So we'll give you an update on that and break that down for you guys. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. It goes a long way, especially as things are starting to slow down. I'm really starting to notice things are slowing down big time with the channel, especially over the last several days. But I appreciate folks who continue to tune in. You can always tell when you have the regular returning viewers, as you can look at the statistics and analytics of these videos and see the video duration, how long they're watched. And even though sometimes the views drop, the length of the time that people watch it increases. So you can tell the regular viewers certainly watch a lot of the video, and that's certainly appreciated. But welcome to any new viewers. And definitely thanks for considering to subscribe and like the video. If you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put it in the comments below so I can do that. And I promise you others will do so too. We all can look out for one another and glorify God doing this. Check out water vapor loop this morning. A little bit of troughing over the northwest, which, by the way, we're going to start incorporating more of the west into these morning videos and talk about your weather a good bit more. So appreciate you folks who have unconditionally tuned in from out west. Even though I don't really talk about your weather, it means the world, means a lot, and I'm going to definitely give back to you folks because you certainly deserve it. And we're going to start talking about the west more. But moving along, the leftover energy from yesterday is fading away, continues to fade away this morning in Texas, but we'll have more energy that fires up in western and west central Texas later today, where we have a little bit of a ridging ongoing right here in this region. It's very light, but it's here. But you have a bit of a northwest flow, kind of a ridge rider setup, but it's certainly not like a ridge way up here where you have a flow like this. It's a lot more smaller. This ridging is weak, but it's here. So you have a flow that's going to support, a marginal to slight, just a chance of strong to severe storms in areas of the southern plains and the southern high plains, which, if you don't know where the if you don't know what the high plains is, it's basically the plains, but it's the area of the plains where it gains elevation. So kind of like in this region right into here in general, where you still are in plains, still in relatively flat terrain, but you're pretty high up in elevation because, as you know, the further west you work, the higher up you climb, and you don't even realize that you're doing so. So we'll certainly have episodes of strong to severe storms really over the next several days in this region of the country. We actually look at reflectivity and what's going on actually at the surface, meaning what is falling out here. And we'll zoom out and we'll kind of zoom back in, not all the way out into the entire Atlantic basin, but let's go back in, and we're certainly dealing with some showers and storms out here. But more so just some heavy rain. In fact, if you're in Birmingham, points north to Huntsville, Alabama, waking up to a very rainy, dreary type Tuesday morning. Same thing in Atlanta, all the way down here to Columbus, and all the way down here into northern portions of the Panhandle of Florida. A big plume of, a big plume of moisture just off the coast of the Georgia coastline and South Carolina coastline out here. Some showers and storms straddling the eastern coastline of Florida. Some storms, showers out here in the Gulf of Mexico, and some leftover moisture, a little bit of a spin right here here in Texas, kind of northern areas of Texas. This is weakening. This is kind of the leftover energy from last night that has drifted very slowly because you just have a lot of weak flow aloft. Just not much forcing in the atmosphere to really get this rain and storm activity to move on, pushing across areas of Texas. So you might be waking up to some rain in these areas. Same kind of deal in areas of Oklahoma, southern counties of Kansas, an area of rain up here in this portion, well northwest of Oklahoma City. We'll zoom out here. Outside of that, some shower activity up here in kind of northern and northwest Minnesota. And you still have this trailing, line of storms that is moving through eastern Montana. And, this is certainly some heavier rain, maybe some lightning and thunder being produced from this out here in far eastern Montana as kind of the leftover energy from yesterday continues to funnel in. Got some shower and storm activity in southern Idaho out here also. We look, sorry for clearing my throat so much, from the Storm Prediction Center, we look at what's going on. You have a slight risk of severe storms. That's a level 2 out of 5, and a good chunk of Texas central to western Texas out here. Marginal risk extends all the way into far southeast Colorado, and then you got a marginal risk of severe storms right down here in Florida. This includes the Panhandle, Florida, Big Bend areas of Florida, and pretty much the entire east coast of the peninsula of Florida. So tornado threat, very low, 2% risk, but it is here. You got enough of a weak flow aloft to at least throw out a 2% chance of a tornado within 25 miles in any given location. Includes Amarillo, Lubbock, Midland, almost down to Fort Stockton, Abilene, and all the small communities and towns in between. 15% risk of winds pushing 50 knots or higher within 25 miles in any given location. That's 55 to 60 miles per hour in this region. And hail threat. You have a chance of some pretty large hail today. Not only you have a 15% risk of hail, you have a 15% hatch risk of hail, which means in general you have a 10% risk of significant hail, which means you have a 10% chance of hail pushing 2-inch in diameter or larger. Amarillo, Lubbock, Midland, Abilene. So I really think we're going to have some monster hail today in this region of the country. So please be careful out in western Texas, west central Texas. Big time hail could certainly fall. You look at the excessive rainfall outlook and, you kind of look at it, and I would say that there's a chance this could get upgraded to a slight risk over here in Florida today. We'll see what happens, but in general, just kind of a trio of a 5% marginal risk of flash flood guidance being met. Means there's at least a 5% risk of flash flooding occurring in these regions. So not very high, but I would watch this for this to upgrade to a slight risk in areas of Florida a little bit later on. But in the southeast today, I just showed you kind of what's going on just a second ago, but we will continue to watch. I think showers and storms will continue throughout most of the day in central and southern sections of Alabama. And then we get into the evening, and I think they will kind of fade away, if you will. But maybe some shower activity and kind of the southern half, very isolated in nature, southern half of Missouri. Maybe a shower or two, maybe a storm or two in northern Arkansas. Outside of that, not a big weather day for you folks. But some big storms are possible anywhere in Florida. Panhandle to the peninsula of Florida. Anywhere. You could get some big-time storm activity down here. In fact, you just take a closer look at everything. And you look at Alabama, like I said, Birmingham to Montgomery, Tuscaloosa, down here to Mobile. If you're in Tallahassee, you folks could certainly see some big-time storms just off the coastline, just inland, not just off the coastline, but just inland off the coastline, if you will, and the Panhandle of Florida this afternoon. This is around 5, 6, 7 p.m. this afternoon. Big storms are possible. I'm not talking about storms that are going to produce tornadoes or anything like that, most likely, but some hail is possible, some damaging winds, and a lot of rain can fall from some of these storms in the Panhandle of Florida a little bit later on today, this afternoon to this evening. And then you're starting off this morning for all of Florida, and we'll get into just after lunchtime, and then some storms could fire up just inland off the western coastline of Florida, and then they could drift inland into the central sections of Florida. And then I would watch out right around the Orlando, Universal Studios, Disney World regions. you guys could get hit hard this evening by some strong to severe storms, heavy rain. These storms don't have much flow to them, and they could pack a punch a little bit later. And even into the overnight hours, I would watch for some storm activity really anywhere in Florida, anywhere. So, rainfall between now and the next 24 hours. I mean, certain areas could get over an inch of rain, 2 inches of rain. But remember, this isn't a perfect forecast by any means. Some areas could get 2 to 3 inches of rain. But it definitely favors the Big Bend areas, the Panhandle of Florida, and then kind of the middle ground of the peninsula of Florida could get a couple inches of rain today from some slow-moving storms. The Northeast, you again get your 20 seconds of fame. I know it's not much, but just chill weather. You guys have nice spring-like weather we get into this afternoon. We're watching a cold front from the north working its way out of Canada. I think that eventually this could bring some shower activity into your region for Wednesday morning. It's the far northern portions of New York State and Vermont, Maine, New Hampshire. But between now and the next 24 hours, really quiet weather. South Central U.S., a little bit of a different story, especially if you're in Texas. We'll continue to work our way into the afternoon. Not a whole lot going on, but you get into, if you're wondering what time frame we're at, look up here. Back this up an hour because this is an Eastern time. We get into 3, 4, 5, 6 p.m. We got this one lone storm showing up from the HRRR model today late afternoon into early evening. Watch out for this. This looks like it's around the Alston area. We'll see if that actually verifies, but this is the area right here that you watch. And then bang, big time storms form. And they might kind of just develop into a line very quickly. But I would say if you get any kind of discrete action from this, you got to run the risk for a tornado. But there could be some more widespread storms than what the HRRR model is showing for I keep wanting to say tomorrow evening, but for this evening up here, right where kind of Colorado and Oklahoma meet right up in this region. I could have some more widespread storms this evening, but we get a little bit closer look at Texas. Big storms, guys. I mean, this is around 8 or 9 p.m. this evening. And, I mean, I would say this would be probably east of Lubbock, Midland. But you just as well could have these storms firing up way up here in Amarillo too. But these storms will fire up and then they'll fly across kind of the northwest central areas of Texas, if that's even a thing. But this portion of Texas right into here, I think Abilene could certainly get some big storms later this evening. Please be careful in and around that area and any kind of towns and communities in this area of Texas right into here. These storms could be producing some damaging winds and some very, very large hail in this region. Certainly a setup where we could see baseball-size hail, softball-size hail. So please be aware of this. These will continue to work its way through the heart of Texas. We get into after midnight tonight, and I think that this will be continuing and continue to hold some steam. Sometimes these hold a lot more steam or more well put together late into the overnight hours than what models like to show. But we get all the way into the wee hours of the morning, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and this area of storms, you notice how it's working. It's that northwest flow. It's kind of working in from the northwest, and it's rounding this ridge way out over here. And, around this ridge, you have a flow like this. I'm not saying this area of storms is going to go way over here, but in general, you get what I'm saying. But it's a very weak flow, and this area of storms will get developed right here, probably, and then drift kind of like this throughout the evening hours. And it's kind of a Ridge Rider setup. And a lot of times these I wouldn't be surprised if we get an enhanced risk for large hail today. Would not be surprised one bit. But please, watch out if you're in this entire corridor even all the way up here. This entire corridor of Texas throughout the late afternoon and evening time frame. It's kind of an awful looking oval circle. But this entire area right into here could certainly get some sort of complex area of storms that are going to probably develop right into here and then drift southeast throughout the late afternoon, evening time frame. So please be careful of this. The north central U.S., really the only thing to talk about is some shower activity later this afternoon in northern Minnesota. This cold front moving in from the north, there'll actually be widespread shower activity up here, maybe even some storm activity that could produce some small hail in kind of eastern areas of North Dakota and northern areas of Minnesota. Would not be surprised. Even some storm activity kind of at the southwest base of this trough could develop here in western North Dakota. But we'll continue to get this going, and I would say this trough definitely brings in more of the smoke from Canada into this region. We could have some shower activity drift into northern Wisconsin, the UP of Michigan, and we'll continue to see what happens with this. But we showed this in last night's video. You're already probably waking up to a haze and kind of smoky conditions this morning, especially if you're in areas of Minnesota and the eastern Dakotas. But I would say that this becomes even more like if you're in International Falls, northern Minnesota, later this afternoon, over Lake Superior, getting into the UP of Michigan, northern Wisconsin. Once you get into late afternoon, later this evening, the smoke, it looks like the most intense area of smoke moves in after the sun sets. But I'm telling you, this is going to be some very smoky conditions that moves in later this evening for the north central U.S. and the Great Lakes region. So go on and be prepared for this. If you struggle breathing and bad air quality, most people do, but some people are a little bit more sensitive to it. Be aware of the smoke that's going to move through. I mean, it's already there this morning. It's already been here over the last couple of days, but I think it really becomes amplified later this afternoon, this evening in this region. The west out here, you got troughing setting up right in here. So you kind of got a dip right into here, and then you have the ridging kind of going like this. This is the ridging setting up. So you kind of have a flow kind of moving like this in general. So, in this entire area today, you could have a chance for showers and storm activity. Even in the far higher elevations, you could certainly have some storm activity. I'm sorry, in the higher elevations, you can certainly mix with some snow. But I would say later this afternoon, this entire area, if you're in certainly the northern to northeast portion of Nevada, areas of northern Utah, even central Utah, but all of Wyoming, Montana, you could get some stronger storms potentially in eastern Montana. This entire area right up here is going to see some storm activity. Right into this region, right into here. Storm activity will fly through. Widespread rains are possible, and kind of areas of eastern Idaho and then southwest sections of Montana. But certainly a showery kind of pattern setting up with a trough right up here, and then you have energy that kind of flies up into this region. But temperatures today, very warm into the northern portion of the country. 80s, you're going to have another day where it probably hits 90 degrees somewhere in Minnesota. In the Dakotas, very warm in the Midwest, 80s. The Great Lakes region, very pleasant, 70s and 80s for highs, probably more so 80s. But more spring-like conditions, more spring-type temperatures in the Northeast, but beautiful conditions. Unless you're closer to the coastline of Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and just the flow does not support big time warming. So, areas like Boston's going to, struggle to potentially get into the low 60s. But rain cooled air right over here in the deep south. That's why your temperature is only in the 60s and 70s showing up. And where you don't have a lot of cloud cover, you can warm into the 70s and 80s, but very warm in the Texas region, where you'll get, especially in western Texas, you'll get into the 90s. Somebody might try to clip 100 degrees today. Temperatures out west, very typical for this time of the year, except if you're in the high plains. Montana, certainly very warm. Central and eastern Montana, getting into the 80s. Same thing with eastern Wyoming, well into the 80s. I would say that's a little above average for sure. The desert Southwest, certainly starting to warm up, but this is nothing totally unusual for this time of the year. And just typical kind of conditions for the Northwest, Pacific Northwest. Nothing surprising, but certainly find your area. As you can tell, microclimates in the West. These little pockets of cooler air, if you don't know, that's higher elevation. So, it's always tough. One area could sit 2,000 feet up in the air. Another area could sit 10,000 feet up in the air. Obviously, the weather's going to be much different, when you're comparing those two elevations. So, moving forward here, guys, Tomorrow, another marginal risk of severe weather, level 1 out of 5. This could upgrade to a slight risk. High plains, same area with this ridge of high pressure over this region. You move into Thursday, same kind of area. High plains are being affected. Severe weather is possible. I'm telling you, this could uptrend to a slight risk as confidence increases. And I could see this similar deal setting up into the weekend. And the reason you got this pattern is just because you got this little nudge right here. You see the orange? That is ridging, nudging up into this area. So you keep this moving, and it's just this weak little nudge that you got right here that continues to keep this flow aloft, meaning several thousand feet up in the atmosphere, keeps this flow at 500 millibars, supportive for basically this northwest flow into this region. So you get little kinks in this ridge, and these little kinks are little shortwave pieces of energy. And, each afternoon you have an explosion of thunderstorms. And depending on where this ridging sets up, this flow can go more so up here. Or, if the weakens, it can go more so down here. But we'll continue to watch to see how this ridging does. And, if you continue to move forward here, and I'll get this in motion, we'll get into Wednesday. Watch how this little orange area continues to kind of build somewhat north and actually extend well up in here. So this kind of omega block sets up again. So how does this influence the pattern? At the same time, you have a cutoff low over the southeast and the mid-south. This one influenced the flow too. So you got competing currents in the atmosphere, directional flows. Okay, so it's kind of weird. You got a different flow in the low levels than you do in the mid and upper levels. And the low level flow at the surface is supporting a kind of a fetch of moist air into the high plains. So that's why you're continuing to have these chances. Now I'm telling you, this cutoff low is going to be a nuisance for Memorial Day weekend across the southeast. I'm telling you right now, it's going to be an absolute menace. It's going to destroy some plans. It's not a laugh because I'm happy it is. It's a laugh because it just it's just a sad laugh. But I really think that this is really going to cause some issues. You see this area of this area yellow and green. That is a cold pocket of air aloft. This will create showery, cool conditions. In fact, Saturday might be downright miserable for areas of the southern Alps and the Carolinas. We'll talk about that as we get closer. But a lot of rain coming up later this week for Florida. But then this energy from the stalled front will emerge off the coast of the southeast sometime Thursday evening. We get into Friday morning. The latest GFS wants an all-out system getting close to that 1,000 millibar mark. Once it gets above 1,000 millibars, that's probably the model trying to say we got some kind of depression, some kind of weak tropical storm, but it really wants to throw a big plume of moisture right into the Carolina coastline sometime late Friday into Saturday. That's just one model. You look at the other models, you look at the European model, and it gets the same kind of deal, a big plume of moisture as we get into Thursday into Friday, really close to the Carolina coastline. In fact, probably close enough to deliver a lot of clouds and showers and maybe heavy rain. And we get into Saturday morning, and it does actually push some heavy rain into areas of kind of the northern coastline of South Carolina, the entire coastline of North Carolina. But it never fully emerges, this low pressure, it's never fully influenced by this cutoff low over here to get yanked in. Okay, so it doesn't really technically make, I guess, what you would say a quote-unquote landfall. Canadian model really doesn't like the idea at all of anything developing, and whatever energy it is trails well off into the Atlantic. Doesn't bother anybody. So if you're pulling for a nice weekend, you need to pull for the old Canadian model to be correct. But that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. I may or may not have a video this evening. We'll see what happens, but it's just that time of the year where we're just kind of going over the same information, and I don't want to do that too much, especially if it doesn't change from one 12-hour period to the next. But anyways, regardless, I'll talk to you again when I talk to you. God bless all y'all. Have a great Tuesday, and see you soon.